I practiced 5 times and I only completed it once. So I was like, okay, I need to do things that allow me to complete this thing. So a couple things that I learned was that if I compare this to the wireframe, as I was looking at some of the past wireframes, it was easy to combine certain sections to just be smaller and be less things to design. So that was one thing that I had as a strategy going forward, was like, these two things in the wireframe are two separate elements, but if I combine them, they essentially become one element, right? So that could become a 2-up, or that could become a 3-up, or that could become a carousel. So I just wanted to reduce the amount of elements on the page, because that was the thing that was allowing me to not finish. So I did that with these 2 sections. I made these 2 into one. Something even as small as combining kind of the header and the hero into one section also helped. The other thing that I learned too was if I kept the footer simple, then I could essentially use the footer as the header too. So rather than making, what I would want to do if I had more time is just do kind of like a giant footer, but it just takes too much time to design. So instead I was like, I could just do a footer with the name of the company and the nav across the bottom, and, you know, as you see here, and then essentially just reuse that for the header as well. So I was trying to find a bunch of things that would save me time, that I could just execute on those really quickly and then add some details as I could. I'm not in love with the color palette here. I wanted to do something that was, I had sort of a rule for myself that I didn't want as many things to be black and white. And actually my initial strategy first was to turn the whole page black and then use pops of color in there. But once I saw the UI elements in it, I didn't know how that was going to work. So I was like, okay, I have to change that strategy around, because I didn't know how these would look on black. The contrast might be too high. You might not get the illustrative feel on like a black background. So it sort of shifted my strategy around. And in order to do that, I was like, let me just grab a color palette that already exists from some of the mood board. So I don't have to invent a color palette, try to like finagle like things looking good and looking accessible and things like that. And then from there, it was just placing the illustrations where I could place them to add some interest to the page. So I was thinking about doing kind of a big illustration here, but I'd already used those ideas below on the page. So I'm going to do something a little different. So I went kind of this collage idea, you know, more in the header here, kind of playing with this, and totally agree with Tommy and also some of the comments in the chat that UI next to UI is really difficult. That's what I find difficult about designing design system sites too, like reference sites, is like when you have UI that you're trying to document and describe as well as UI for people to use it, it gets really tough. So I was trying to make a very significant visual difference between the UI of the page and using these kind of thicker borders and different colors, and then the UI that was for illustration purposes there too. So trying to be really specific about doing that. I use the blur here. I mean, this is essentially how I create shadows, is generally using shapes to blur and blurring the shapes. Obviously, this is, you know, the 1 second version of doing it. The way that I generally make shadows in Figma is layering a bunch of shapes on top of themselves to create like more perspective shadows. So if I had more time, I would have spent time with that. But again, like Tommy was saying, just kind of check the box for the shadows under here. And same thing with the shadows underneath some of this illustration here. So overall, I was trying to keep it really simple for myself so that I could complete everything. You saw, I think Josh, you commented on it. You saw that I resized the canvas to say like, oh, I finished the comp. Then because of some of the auto layout and constraints in the illustrations, it ruined my layout. So I have a little hack here where I have a rectangle that I just placed on top of my canvas. That's the same color as the background color, you know, just so it feels like the page is ended. So a little bit of a hack there. But that was kind of my strategy, trying to design something and just completely finish it so that I don't have any unfinished elements on the page.
If you'd like to see more RDL action, please consider subscribing. Otherwise, check out more videos over here. Thanks.